what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another free guitar lesson. Today we're going to be jumping into a very interesting topic. At least to me, I find it very interesting. It's something that I've been working on the past couple of years. I think it's kind of unique, a unique approach to looking at the guitar, a unique, fun, easy way to look at approaching the guitar. This is something that I like to call the open modes. Now, why do I like to call it the open modes? Well, over the past few years, I've been getting really into listening and studying Indian classical music. So this is raga music. It's often performed if with a string instrument, and not limited to only, but often performed with, say, a sitar or a sarod, and accompanied by tabla. Okay, so instruments like the sitar or the sarod are tuned to one key in a sense. Okay, and you know, this is my not so educated understanding of it. So the way I come to understand it, and I'm still learning a lot about it, but is that these instruments have a series of strings for the sympathetic notes. So every time you strike a note, the other ones will respond in a way where there's a lot of overtones that will support that note. So with that said, say a sitar is often tuned to D. Okay, so like there'll be two strings on the sitar that you play, and those are tuned to D and A, which, as you know, if you played that on the guitar, it would be like a power chord. So that leaves you room to play around those. Like you could kind of play a, you know, you could have a third, a minor third, or you could have, you know, a major seventh, but the root and the fifth are not affected by that, right? So the instrument has a lot of modal flexibility. Now you couldn't change the instrument to play in another key, like I'm just going to say like G flat major. It would be very difficult, and maybe there's some adapting that you can do, but then there would be some limitations. So anyway, I came to this approach on the guitar. The guitar, we don't have sympathetic notes, but if we looked at how the guitar is tuned, it's tuned all like to E. Now it just so happens that if you were to play all the open strings on a guitar, it makes a big E minor 7 chord with an 11 actually. So it's E, A, D, G, B, E, right? So if you were to look at that as like a chord, this would be my root. This would actually be the 11th or the 4th, A. D is the minor 7, G is the minor 3rd, B is the perfect 5th, and E would be the root again. So what I came to try to kind of come around was looking at the guitar in a way that, like, if I were to like maybe self-accompany myself on the guitar, I would have a lot of notes that could support it, that are on the guitar. So I started taking a look at the 3rd string and learning to play certain scales going up the 3rd string. Right? And then if I were to maybe want to play an open 6th string as like a bass note, open E, and then open high E and open B, right? I could get a lot of cool effect from that. Right? It's almost as if there was another guitar player accompanying me, but there isn't. And that other guitar player would only be playing like an E minor while I was right, going up and down the 3rd string. So right there, it's like almost as if I had these strings as my sympathetic note strings. And this would be my one string that I would be using to create my melodic content with, right? So this is how I started getting into this, and I started noticing that you could do this with a bunch of other keys, okay? So like you could start seeing that if, you know, if you didn't play the open 3rd string and you instead played it with the G sharp, then that would give you access to a lot of, you know, E major oriented keys. So like E major, for instance, or E7, right? Because that open D will support that, right? So some of these keys you'd have to be more careful with what open strings you could play with, but in general, there's a lot to be taken with open strings on the guitar, right? So open string usage is optimal for guitar. A lot of guitar's richness is in the open strings, okay? So for instance, I like to use chords that have open strings inside of them, but it's like a mix of fretted notes and open string notes, for instance. You know, chords like these are just absolutely beautiful, right? And they have like these, you know, these open strings inside of them that you could, you know, you can get a lot of depth out of, right? When we use these open strings, right? So that's what I like. And so this is why a lot of guitar players use capos, okay, when changing to other keys. Now I could take the same principle that I'm about to show you guys and move it, just put a capo on the second fret. So now all of a sudden I'm in F sharp Dorian. All right, so that's really cool. All right, let's go back to E. All right, so our open E. So today we're gonna be looking at the first column. That's E Dorian. Now E Dorian is also relative, of course, to the key of D major, B minor, G Lydian, and a few others. Okay, and I like to use E Dorian because it's got a beautiful kind of characteristic, right? It's almost fully minor, but it's got that major six, right? So it's got this very particular color to it that I'm obsessed with. The open modes is a fun, easy way to look at voicing chords on the guitar, and we'll see that not just playing like, you know, open strings, but to also voice chords. And it's also great for soloing, which I will show you shortly, and making counterpoint, which might be in another video. So let's look at first the first step. What we would do with this concept is we're going to learn just 3 strings. And those are going to be the first string, the third string, and the sixth string, okay? So let's look at E Dorian. So the lowest possible position on the open first string, which would be E, so that's the root, right? So these are all E Dorian, right? Fantastic. Okay, so now we're going to go up the third string. Lowest possible note, and E Dorian is G. We're going to go up to A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G. Okay, and then just like the first string, the sixth string is 2 octaves lower, so we could play the same frets and we'll get the same notes. Okay, and what I want you to think about is we're going to look at these strings as if they're almost their own voice. So we're looking at the guitar vertically, even though it's horizontal, we're looking at it vertically as if going up and down. Make sense? So the strings are like their own voice. And so you can start creating these great counterpuntal kind of approaches. And then finding intervals as well, right? And this is very nice. So we're already finding a lot of richness from this, right? So we could kind of create a phrase and then maybe, you know, in that same position, right? Create a lot of nice counterpuntal, melodic stuff. Okay, but now what's going to happen when we incorporate the sixth string, right? So we could always obviously use that open sixth string as like a drone of E, which presents the E Dorian in a very beautiful way, and it's great. So what if we started changing different bass notes and started playing different intervals on the third and second strings, right? So you just take these shapes and you could just kind of see from the diagram which ones, all of them work together, okay? So like I could plug these two and I could play an A in the bass. I could also play that A open, for example, like I did in the intro to the video. right? And then I could start playing different bass notes on the sixth string. Right? And it starts to become quite elaborate, and you'll see that there's a whole other universe that you could explore. Right? So right there, you can get creative with your right hand and start looking at different arpeggiating patterns, which I think we'll do that in part 2. Arpeggiating patterns and rhythmic concepts. Okay, so you could start looking at different time signatures, odd meters to play this stuff. Okay, and let's now jump into perhaps another very fun one that I enjoy a lot. Also, in addition to E Dorian, is E Phrygian. Okay, so we're in a different key now. We're going to switch, and we're going to be putting a G sharp in here, and we're going to be making our C a C natural, and I believe that's it, right? So everything else is going to be the same. So I'm going to still use my open sixth string, and then also obviously you could always put your open second string, right? Because the B is neutral; it's the fifth, right? So it's kind of, it works with many different keys, which is what's convenient about this. Right, so now I'm in E Phrygian, right? So what I'm going to use is that G sharp, A, B, C, D, E, F natural, G sharp, right? And same thing over here. Okay? So right there, I could use these beautiful melodies. Right, and kind of use these open strings to accompany me, right? And maybe even change. Right, so that's all E Phrygian. Okay, so I'm using E, I'm thinking E major, like flat 9, or E7 flat 9 as my kind of like bass note, all right? So there's a whole world that you could use from this. So in part 2 of this series, I'm going to show you guys how we could implement different right hand patterns. So perhaps like finger picking, and different, metric patterns, and how, rhythmic concepts, and how we could approach this. Okay, so enjoy. Let me know what you guys come up with. There's a whole world of information here that you could unpack. All right, so enjoy.